Welcome back, everyone. On today's call, we're going to go through how you can actually figure out what indexes to use in an annuity contract. We're not going to break down all the annuity contracts, but we see so many requests coming in from either the agents trying to do better for the clients or clients saying, hey, my agent showed me a 20% return in my contract. And I just freaking hate when that happens. It's not good for you, the client, and it's not good for the agent to go around showing that. I really wish that annuity companies did not do that just because it's not realistic. Anyway, we're going to break down how to go through all the index options in an annuity contract once you get the illustration. And we'll go through a little bit of some bonus annuities versus non-bonus annuities. And I know we talk about that a lot, but it's just really, really good information for you guys to have as you're making a big decision. And to do all this stuff, we're going to take a look at the Athene Performance Elite series. So they're pretty much like the new kid on the block. If you've been seeing any ads out there on social media, you're probably seeing a lot of information about the Athene product suite, especially their Performance Elite products. So we're going to break that one down today. What indexes are good and what indexes are not so good. Maybe where there's some misleading stuff coming out from the insurance companies. It's not just Athene. Almost every insurance company does this, and I'm not a big fan of it. But anyway, there's still very, very good contracts once you take them under the hood and just know what indexes to put your cash in. That's what dictates where your money is actually growing in there. My name is Annuity. I am the CEO of 360 Financial Group. If you ever do want to get in contact with us to run through your retirement options, just come over here, go to 360financialgroup.com/contact, and we will get in contact with you. But anyway, you might notice there is a different background. So yes, I actually am sitting in my mom's basement right now, but let me show you why I'm doing that. And I want you guys to know like a little bit about me. So, if we start doing business together, whether you're an agent or whether you're a client, that you know who I am and what values I have and what matters a lot to me. I'm very big on family. So no, I'm not just coming up here to live in my mom's basement. I typically live down in South Carolina. That's where I spend a majority of my year. When I say majority, probably like 4 or 5 months. The rest I'm either up here working on the farm or traveling around the world. So this is our farm. And put down in the comments where you think this is. Every time I tell people where this is, they're like, oh, that doesn't sound right. But anyway, if you guess New Jersey, you are correct. So we live up here in northern New Jersey, not too far from the Pennsylvania and New York state border. This is our farm up here. So it's been in the family for about like 115-ish years now. And it's a big part of my life. Is where I grew up. I love coming back here and working on it. It's like a free labor, family farm, summer kind of gig. So I come up here and ride some tractors. But anyway, this is the farm in the fall. So I'm filming this right now in July. So obviously this is not the colors here in July. These were all some pictures from the summer I just wanted to share with you guys. Now we just do hay. There used to be like 10,000 chickens back in the day. And now we just do hay just to maintain the land here. It's my doggy down here. My uncle sitting by the lake. My dog, my sister just bought herself and her boyfriend a van. They actually go around the country selling pickleball paddles. So if you need pickleball, let me know. We're just throwing some hay in the barn. My dog, they'd probably kill me if I put this picture up there, but this is just a random Sunday. The other day, we were just hanging out by the farm, by the lake, riding the tractor around. So if you're ever interested on how hay works, so we sell a lot of this hay to horses. And once it's cut, it needs to dry. And the machine I have behind me right now over here, it kicks up and it fluffs the hay. So it kind of like turns it over so the other side can dry. And you typically need about 3 days of sun. So one day to cut it, one day for it to dry, and then the last day for it to also dry a little bit, but then you're going to put it in bales. That's where you saw me carrying around the wagon. This was our 4th of July the other day. We just lit up some fireworks out on the farm. That was a lot of fun. My mom, I think this was around 4th of July. She had a leash here for my dog, and normally she just runs wild on the farm. She's got a great life. And this little garden that my mom's got. But anyway, so the end of this week, I will be heading down to Colombia to go work down there. I have a staff down there. She's absolutely amazing, Anna. So I'm going to spend some time with her and just go chill out in the mountainside and enjoy some good coffee and hang out for a bit. So if you are an agent or if you are a client, you just want to come hang out and see some cool stuff and just, relax, more than welcome. But, I definitely don't mind spotting a room or something for a couple of days and we just learn together and have some fun and relax and enjoy the beauty. But anyway, I want you guys to know just a little bit about me. So hopefully I didn't sidetrack you too much. So I want to get into the main discussion today. And in order to do that, I want to break down the Athene product suite because I think it does a very, very good job. And Athene does do a really good job. Actually, they put all their indexes right on their website. So we can actually see the performance of all the indexes, that they're very transparent, which is something I really do like about Athene. This is what's called Athene's rate sheet, or how their product is priced. And it's their 10-year product. And on their 10-year product, it only comes in a bonus option. So I want to bring us through how this works first. We're going to analyze how it's actually priced. And then we can kind of line this up with the projections that we see in an illustration to see, hey, does what they're showing me in an illustration actually match up to how the index has performed? Because there's another example I had with a Nationwide client actually just yesterday. We were going over this example. Nationwide, another amazing company, but the client got put in indexes in a 3-year index. So they're not going to see any growth for 3 years. And the index just came out in 2023. I think one of them was in 2024. There's just over a year of data on it, and they're locked into that. And they got shown these sky-high returns, which are freaking ridiculous. But anyway, I want you guys to have a lot more transparency on how the indexes actually work. So if you do make a big decision, if you're a client putting in a couple $100,000, $1 million into an annuity contract, you know it's actually going to a good spot here. So we're going to break this down so you guys can start understanding how just like indexes also work. With Athene, we have what's called the base option, and then we have the plus option. So both of them are going to come with a bonus. That's what these numbers mean right here. And the reason that these numbers are all different, it's just going to depend what state you're in. So if you're in any of these states, it'll be a 14% bonus. Any of these states, it'll be a 13, and pretty simple. The plus version has what's called a liquidity rider. So they're going to give you a higher bonus, but it's going to come at almost a 1% fee on the back end. So instead of just getting 5% a year penalty free, where you can take out, let's say you have a 100K contract, you can take out $5,000 per year with Athene normally. In order to get 10% a year, which most companies have, so if you have 100K, take out 10 grand a year penalty free, you have to add the plus version. So that's going to put a liquidity rider on it that's going to again cost you 1% in order to access more of your cash. And now I want to go down to all their indexes here. So a lot of companies have either 2-year indexes or 1-year indexes. So that you have the 2-year and the 1-year. So how the annuity contracts work, if you put in money, let's say, today is July 8th, 2025. If you put that money in today, it's going to depend how does that index do from this point in time to the same point next year. So July 8th, 2026, that's what's called a 1-year point to point. It doesn't matter what it does all throughout the years. It just matters from this point in time to this point in time. So if you do a 2-year contract, it's going to depend on how it does from July 8th, 2025 to July 8th, 2027. Those 2 years. I typically don't like doing 2 years because if it goes up and it comes back down, that 2 years you saw nothing. Even though that they're going to give you a higher rate for that 2 years, so you see a better growth opportunity. But if it went up and went back down, you saw nothing. Where if you just stuck with the 1-year index, when it went up, you locked in those gains. When it came back down, you didn't see any of that. And when it goes back up, you start seeing the gains again. So that's why if we look at this no strategy charge, let's just say we look at this the top index, the AI Powered Global Opportunities Index, is you see a 140 on the 2-year and a 107 on the 1-year. So a lot of people like come to even veteran agents, they say, hey, Dan, like this BNP Paribas, it still shows very solid participation rate, like 145%, or this AI Powered Index, it's 120. Well, it doesn't matter what the participation rate is if the index is not doing too well. So what I like to do is analyze all of these indexes to figure out how long has it been around and how should it actually perform. It could have 1,000% participation rate. And let me back up. What the participation rate means, if you're not sure what that is what percentage of the gains are you actually going to see? So let's use this AI-powered U.S. equity index. And let's say it has 120% participation rate. So if that index performs at 10%, you're going to get 120% of it. So you'd end up getting a 12% credit for the year. So the participation rate tells us what percentage gains are we going to see in the contract. With the cap strategy, you're typically going to see the S&P 500, which are my favorite indexes to use. It's been around forever. We know how it's going to perform. It's at 6.25%. If you're using their non-bonus option, which is Athene's 7-year contract, as of right now, it's going to be 8.75. So by taking that bonus, you're dropping this, roughly 30-ish%. And if there's any math gurus out there, I just did it off the top of my head, it might not be exactly correct, but you understand the point of that. It's with the bonus, less growth on the back end. So anyway, that's how the participation rate works. There's no cap. So people say, oh, well, there's no cap, so that can go up to as high as it can. There's no ceiling on it. Yes and no, but the indexes are not designed to do that well. So just because there's no cap doesn't necessarily mean it's a good index. So let's break this down. So I want to show you guys something. So I ended up creating an illustration based off, I believe it was this IPEX index, and it's going to show a pretty high rate of return. And I did it in one of the states with a 13% bonus on it. So you're going to see a 13% bonus out of the gate. And I want to show you guys what that looks like. So this is a hypothetical example. You're going to see the accumulated value here be at 113,000. So this was a client who's putting in $100,000. So out of the gate, you got a 13% bonus. Cool, right? All right. Let's see a 7% return, a 21% return. Absurd. If you see this, please run for the hills because the odds of that happen are super, super slim inside of an annuity contract. You're smoking the markets at that point. 0, okay, cool. All right, zeros are hero. That makes sense. But a 7% return, all right. 4, 3, okay, 21% return, ridiculous, very high. I wish annuity contracts were not allowed to do this. But anyway, you're seeing pretty high rates of return. So if we go like another 10 years in, you have $173,000, which is not bad for 100K to turn that into 173. It doesn't look that bad, right? This looks pretty appetizing. There was a nationwide policy the other day that I saw that showed a 13.5% return. And it's like the average S&P is like 10%. So if you're seeing a 13.5% return, you're smoking the markets with zero risk. Like, yes, that's too good to be true. And that was with those 3-year indexes that came out not long ago. So now that you see this, like, I want to show you guys how to actually analyze these indexes. So this was all using the Apex one. So again, what Athene does, they do a really good job at advertising all the rates on here. So we'll go from top to bottom. We're just going to go from this IGO one all the way down just to analyze each index one by one. Because a lot of companies have very similar indexes, and you'll start being able to figure out these indexes just a lot of times by basic Google searches. And one other thing too, before we get into that, you see also this comes with a strategy chart. I did get an illustration the other day from a potential client that had the liquidity rider on there, so it's already 1%, and they put the strategy charge on here, so you get a higher participation rate. So like here with the IGO, you get 195 over 140. All right, so that looks sexy, but it does come at a 1.25% asset charge every year. So with those two charges on there, that client's getting charged 2% a year to manage this. And I just think inside of an annuity contract, that's pretty ludicrous and ridiculous. There's a lot of fees on this for not that much growth, and especially once I show you how the indexes were actually allocated. So let's go down one by one, and we're just going to take this index. So let's just copy it, and we're going to paste it. Sorry, I don't know what it says, but if you ever want to get in contact with us, come over here to our page, come over to the contact section, so you go to 360financialgroup.com, come over to contact, and we're happy to hop on a call with you guys. And if you guys are curious, that's where you go on this side over here. Just submit that, and I'll get in contact with you. But anyway, if we actually just Google that, which is right where this led us to, so performance. So we just go to performance and Google it. Athene is all on their website. This is the IGO one. So let's go top to bottom. This index came out in 2023. So it's got just over 2 years of data on it, which is not that much data on an index that no one knows what this is, right? If it's an S&P, you know what that is, but it came out 2 years ago. If we scroll down here, they do a great job, but we can't even look at the 5-year rate because it hasn't been around for 5 years. We can't look 10-year. Oh my God, 10%. It has. How can you tell me it's done 10%? The index has only been around for just over 2 years. So like, they do all this back testing stuff. Like, to be honest, half the time it's freaking bullshit. And that's the same with every single company. I don't like how they advertise this stuff. I'll show you what indexes I do like that have been tried and true, and we know how it should perform to give you guys, the client, a very realistic expectation. But if you look at this, the 2-year, it's a 1.4%. So obviously not that great. And if you look at the rate sheet again, it's a 1.4%. So you would take 1.4 times 107. You're pretty much getting a 1.5, 1.6. So you're not seeing that much growth on that account at all. And especially if you put that liquidity rider on it, you're not seeing any growth because it just costs you 1% to get that. Now let's take a look at the AI-powered U.S. equity index, the IFEX. That's the one that we just looked at before in that illustration with Athene. So let's take a look at this one. Athene, it'll be right on the contract. So this one, okay, this has been around for more than 2 years, which is already a good start. But let's take a look at this. So 10-year, can't look at that because it doesn't exist. The 5-year annualized 0.1% is what it's averaged. It just came out, right? If we look at this 10-year, right, the 10-year doesn't actually exist, but it's going to show it on a tear. And this is typically what happens with what's called volatility control indexes. The back testing shows the index on an absolute tear, and then the index comes out and it's like, it's kind of garbage. Because imagine this, if this index had all these great growth rates with a high participation rate, you're smoking the markets. Like legit smoking the markets. There's some companies out there that I really like the company, but like there's a 200% participation rate on it, and their back testing shows a rival in the S&P. So if the S&P average is 10, there's a 200% participation rate on it. They're getting 20% on average inside of their annuity contract or their IUL. It's just not going to happen. Never buy an annuity contract under those presumptions. And you see that once it came out back in 2019, it stayed stagnant. You know, if you buy whatever reason, you put money in down here and you saw it go up, cool. You saw 1 year of solid growth, but this has been stagnant over the last 6 years since this contract actually came out. So the 5-year 0.1%. So if you as an agent put a client into that index with a 1.25% strategy charge and the liquidity rider, you're actually costing that client money every single year. You're not making a penny. You're not making anything. And I don't like how agents and companies can do that. But anyway, this is just really good information for you guys to know. That's the purpose of this. I'm not trying to shit on anyone or anything, but I just really don't like it when people mess around with other people's retirements. So if we look at the BNP Paribas, let's just go down one by one. And again, this is the great thing about Athene is that they advertise all this stuff, which is nice. They're very open. So this one came out in 2016. So there's a lot more data. There's almost 10 years of data on that. But again, the 5-year averaging 1.85, the 10-year 2.39. So we're almost at 10 years. So and I could take that. But if you take that 2.39 and multiply that by 1.45, you're seeing just like a 3% return on average. There could be months in there. You could have some clients that's, got in low and made it to the high point, but the odds of that happening are just not that great. So I don't like a lot of these indexes in here. I just think they're extremely misleading, especially when agents put a charge on that too. So now if we look at like this S&P, this is an S&P volatility control. So it's only been around since 2020, but it's NASDAQ focused. So I do like that a lot, that it's NASDAQ focused, or if it's S&P focused, but still 2.6, 2.56, 6.37 again. sometimes these 2 years are very misleading because we do go through recessions, right? We do go through depressions where that can happen. And at just this specific point in time, Athene does a good job at updating all this stuff. It could have just been a low point in the market. Right. So I don't like looking at the 2 year as much as I do like the 5 years. And if they don't have 5 years of data, I really don't want to use them. So the NASDAQ in this instance, the other day actually did see this a lot higher, the 5 years. So it could just be because now we found it at a low point in time. If we look at this S&P 500 index, and we'll wrap up here pretty soon. So this S&P 500, and again, only been out for, literally just over 2 years, but it's S&P 500 related. So it comes with what's called a volatility target. And this is a higher volatility target. So there's a little bit more risk, which I don't mind on that side. And inside of an annuity contract, but you still have that floor of 0. So 0 is still your hero. This is a lot more realistic because the S&P has been around forever. So I can trust this index a lot more because it actually has been around. There's real data behind this index. On the 2 year, 8.79, 6.7, 9.5. Oh, that looks pretty in line with what this index should perform since it is a volatility control index. All these, the year to date, 1 month, 1 year, and even the 2 year, I'm not as big of a fan of those as the 5 and 10 year policies. But if we looked at this, it's got a 67% par rate. So the 10 year average, you would have seen 67% of that. So, roughly 6-7%. So already that's a lot better than the negative returns you'd have if you had a charge on these in any of these ones. Even though it has a much lower participation rate, it should actually do a lot better for you as the client in the long run. And again, this concept is true with all different annuity companies. This is just the easiest to do with Athene. They advertise everything right on their website. So now if we look at this over here, we'll go to that innovative balance one again. Only been out for 2 years. I have no idea what index this is, right? It's just, we don't know what that is. So I don't like it nearly as much. The S&P or NASDAQ, I can appreciate them if they've only been out for a short period of time. Now if we look at this one, 2 year, negative, 5 year, 4. Again, there's not even a 5 year on it. So that's a lot of the stuff that I wanted to go through with you guys today on how to actually read the different annuity contracts and indexes, because this is one of the most important things that you're choosing. So if you just choose an index that has a high participation rate on it, like you could be throwing your money on fire. It does not matter what the par rate, it matters what the index is. If the index is good with the good par rate, sweet, we're doing really well. But if the index sucks, it had a 0.1% return. I think it's the IPEX here. If it had a 0.1% return, yeah, I go, that doesn't matter for this example. A 0.1% return doesn't matter if it's like 1,000% participation rate. The index is not designed to do that well. It hasn't done that well. So you're, as a client, are not going to see a good return on that. And when we're buying annuity contracts, if we can see between about a 6 to 8% return, that would be happy. If you're seeing anything on your illustration that show 10, 15, 20% return, 10 is okay. So you will see 10% return sometimes inside of an annuity or an IUL contract. If you're looking at an IUL, you can see that. But if you're seeing like 20, 30% returns normally on an illustration, run for the freaking hills, because they're typically using indexes that just came out and we have no idea how they're going to perform. And if like that last client I was working with a 3-year lock on his index, an index that just came out like over a year ago, it was like 2024, we have no idea how that's going to perform. Odds are he's not going to be a happy client for 3 years. And one other thing too, I want to show you before we wrap up here is some of the companies will also advertise what their bonus schedule is. So with this product that we're looking at with Athena, it did come with that bonus. So you're not 100% vested in that bonus from day one. The money is growing off the whole amount, but if you wanted to get rid of your policy, you are not walking away with that bonus. So if you're in most of the states, let's say in chart A, so then chart B would just be the other list of states over here in charts C and D. So if you're in chart A, and if you got rid of the policy in year 6, you're not getting any of that bonus. So you got lower rates and you're not taking away any of that bonus from the contract. If you're in California is weird. Sometimes they do have better stuff in place for clients. Sometimes they're just annoying and frustrating. But this is pretty solid. The same as chart B or very similar to chart B, where you're getting more vested into that contract every single year. But if you're anywhere in this chart C, so Florida, Maryland, or chart A, you don't really have any access to that policy, to that bonus until year 7 if you got rid of that contract. If you want to get into a different one because you didn't like the rates being so much lower, you're not walking away with any of that bonus. So this is just good stuff for you guys to all look at as you are dissecting annuity contracts and figuring out where your money's actually linked to, so you can figure out, is that illustration that an agent sent you, how realistic is this? And a lot of times I like to keep it simple. Do S&P 500 focus indexes. I never have an upset client when we look at S&P 500. When I first started out years ago, I put people into some of these contracts. I feel bad. We fixed them, but it's part of the business. So I want to make sure that you guys do not run into that same mistake by putting your money into pretty garbage indexes that have not been around, because this is a very big decision that you're making as part of your retirement portfolio. Again, if you guys ever have any questions, just come over here to our page at 360financialgroup.com, come over to the contact section, and we will get in contact with you to run through whatever questions that you have in regards to retirement. And again, please don't forget to like, subscribe if you're following this content. And this is probably one of the last ones I'll do here in New Jersey for a bit. So I'm headed down to a bachelor party for my good buddy in Charleston in July, which is going to be hot as hell, but it'll be a lot of fun to see all of them. Then I head down to Columbia for a bit. So I will be filming some content down there. And if you guys want to see any type of content or you have any illustrations that you want me to dissect, please just drop them down in the comments and I'm happy to do so. Anyway, thanks for tuning in and we'll catch you later.